Kakadosh Boker Or Beki'im BaHalacha 7, Siman 168, Kuf Samechet, Halacha Kavdaled. We're on page 23, day 11. Okay, so page 23. Okay, Halacha number 24. Bread dough that is baked to be dry and crispy like a cracker, which is pata babekistin, according to opinion C. You remember we kept on saying that there was going to be three opinions, what is considered mezonot. We brought down the Aruch, the Rambam, and Rav Hai Gaon. So the Aruch was opinion A, which is a pocket. A kiss is your pocket. So it's like a filling. So we did bring down, there was a machloket that some people say that even a filling could be on the top, even if it's not enclosed. I mean, even if it's not going to be shaped on top, that's still considered a filling. That's why we spoke about whether it's going to be lachmajin or other things as well, or pizza, things of that. Yeah. The next one is dough. What does it mean in the dough? That the dough itself is sweet, right? Or the dough itself has different flavorings. So that was going to be Shitat Rambam. And that's opinion B that we kept on bringing down over here. Opinion C is Rav Hai Gaon, which is going to be the concept of called crunchy. Okay, so you've got the filling, right? You've got the dough, and then you've got crunchy. Those are the three opinions. We did bring down that according to Shulchan Aruch, any of the three make it a mezonot. And therefore, even if it's going to be one out of those three, it makes a mezonot. But sometimes when you add them together, it becomes even better. Because the more that you add together, right, the more that it's going to be, how do you call this? That it's going to be mezonot according to everybody. So what would be the nafkamina? That in the middle of a meal. Why? If you're in the middle of a meal, and now I bring you a mezonot, so you don't have to make a mezonot. Why? Maybe it's hamotzi. It's crunchy. Yeah, but that's not enough. Maybe it's still a motzi. Maybe it's gonna be in the dough it's sweet, and maybe it's still a motzi. Maybe it's so. But if you have all three conditions, it's mizunot according to everybody. So if it's mizunot according to everybody, even in the middle of the meal, you would make right the bracha, and that's why I told you guys that if you're in the middle of the meal and I give you a baklawa or I give you a wafer is going to be crunchy. It's going to have a filling, right? And it's going to be sweet, even in the wafer in itself. So therefore, once you're going to have the three different conditions, right, you're going to make a mezonot even in the middle of the meal. Right? No, not about that. Okay, but until here we're clear? Yeah. The three conditions. So that's what we just spoke about. The three conditions we spoke about. We did a quick chazara, opinion A, B, C, which is going to be the Aruch, right? The Rambam. Very good. The Aruch, Rambam, and the Rav Hai Gaon. Okay, until here we're clear?
Now, you say mezonot even if it's only one condition.
Yes, that's how he passes during the not in the middle of the meal. Stop. Not in the middle of the meal, right? And that means right now I'm going to bring you a cracker. You're going to tell me, yeah, but Rabbi, it's even salty. It's not even sweet. It's not in the dough. I'm going to tell you, but it's crunchy. You're going to tell, yeah, but Rabbi, it's not. There's no filling. There's no layer. There's nothing there. It's still crunchy. That's one of the opinions, but it's still mezonot. Right? So that's how Maran paskins. It's still mezonot.
We're making a difference between the middle of the meal or as a dessert.
Yes, because if it's in the middle of the meal, right? So now you don't make a mezonot because al safek that it's also a motzi. So for you don't make a beracha. But if it's mezonot according to all three opinions, it's mezonot according to everybody. So now even in the middle of the meal, you would have to make a mezonot because it's not a motzi.
After the meal, there is no questioning.
Yeah, for sure. After the meal, for sure, you make a mezonot. Yeah. So you come and he says like this: Halacha 24, bread dough that is baked to be dry and crispy like a cracker, which is pata babekisin according to opinion C. So there's Rav Hai Gaon. Okay, page 23. As explained in Halacha 12, the correct blessing is borei min mezunotem and shalosh. This includes all types of crackers and hard pretzels. Now again, you don't have filling. We're not talking about the pretzels that are filled with peanut butter or with chocolate. That means that's already a filling. We're talking about regular pretzels. So the only heter for regular pretzels is that it's crunchy. Because if not, technically it should be a motzi. At the end of the day, it's going to be, and we're not talking about fried. So we're talking about, baked, right? Baked pretzels, right? So that's what it's baked. We're talking about that it's no sweet. So there's nothing in the dough. And it's not, there's no filling. So it's only crunchy. So again, hard pretzels and crackers are mizunot. The correct blessing for toast made out of ordinary bread is amazon, although it has become hard and dry, right? Now, why? Because once bread has become bread, to take it off of the status quo of bread, you have to either fry it or you have to soak it, like you put in a soup.
French
And
toast.
even that, when you're doing it, it has to be small pieces because if it's going to be more than a kazait, it still retains the status quo as bread. So, for example, let's say you had leftover challah of Shabbat, and the challah never touched the meat. So that means you basically have the bread during the salads, and then right when it's done, it's on the side, right? And then you have leftover. So, or even the one that was not really touched on the table, it was, you had a big challah, you cut whatever it was, and then the rest of it was on the challah board over there. It didn't, so you don't have a problem with basar chalav. Now I want to make French toast, right? So comes Motzei Shabbat, and I'm going to make French toast. So technically, Motzei Shabbat you should also have a motzi also. But let's pretend not Motzei Shabbat. Let's say on Sunday. I want to make French toast for the family. So I come, I take the bread, I soak it, right? Whether it's going to be in the eggs with the milk, right? I could add some ketchup and salt if you want, or if you really want, you could add some cheese and other things like that, right? Well, you think it's just French toast and that's it. It's all dry, yeah. Exactly, it's the American version of the French toast. What do you think? Yeah, you come, you add a little bit of ketchup to everything, by the way, right? And your children, and your this, ketchup is everywhere, right? Fine. So you add a tipa. We're talking about a small bit, yeah. We're not talking about that you're making it, yeah. So what happens? You come, you soak the bread, and then you put it to fry. So if the bread is going to be more than a kazait each slice, it's still a mutzi. Right? Why? Was it still a surah tapat? So if you want to make French toast that it's mezunot, you have to make sure that you cut the bread very thin and small pieces in order that each piece is less than a kazai before you fry it. And then it would become a mezunot. Okay, but if not, it's still a motzi. So here the same thing is to do with toast. Toast, you took a regular piece of bread. Now you come and you make it hard. So you made it crunchy. It doesn't change the bracha. It's still a motzi. It's a motzi because Amazon.
How do you measure these
Kazai?
French toast to be thinly,
Wait,
that is
it's the easiest thing. Wait. The easiest way is weighing. Wait.
Without the bread, without the egg,
without anything. Meaning before you put it in the egg, what you do is you cut thin slices. Now it depends on the chalot. Some people make very tall chalot. Some people, their chalot are shorter. So if you have a short chalot and you make them very thin slices, you know that you're not having a kazait each bread. Then there's no problem.
Yeah, but if you have more than one,
yeah. Which one? No, it's in each piece. Each piece per piece, meaning as long as every piece is less than a kazait, even if you're going to have 5 pieces, it's still fine. Now, if you're going to what? No, kazait is 28 grams, 28.8 grams. But if you're going to have 216 grams, which is 4 kabetzim, then it's the mizonot that you would come and you were going to be kovea suda. So then anyway, you would make a mutzi mikadamazon. But let's say I'm only going to have whatever it is. I'm going to have 100 grams, 120 grams, 140, even 159 grams, 160. Right, because it's 162 is the 3 kavetzim. So let's say I can have 161 grams. I'm still fine, even the chatchila.
Also, the 216 grams you have to eat it on Shiur Achilat Plus. If you eat the 216 grams in 20 minutes, not gonna be.
Yes, correct. Okay. So he comes and he says like this: the correct list. So toasted bread does not lose its original status. Marketed toast that is produced specifically to be eaten in this form, however, is crackers. And therefore, the correct blessing in Murim and Mizunot. Meaning, when you buy Melba toast, right? Or you buy, there's other types of also like toasted crackers. So that was made like that from the beginning. So if it was going to be made like that from the beginning, which one? Yes, because there I think it's regular pita, no?
No, don't anymore.
Oh, okay, they're making the pita chips. Exactly. If you make from your pita, it's a problem, right? Because again, unless it's going to be less than a kazait and all those things, and how they do it, but that's what it is. Okay. It's always a mutzi. Again, I'm not sure exactly how they make it. We have to check how they make it, right? Anyways, a lot of those pita chips, anyway, they're not patisserie, so you have another problem anyway, right? So it's like the pretzels, huh? Okay, fine. Papalta. We're Baruch Hashem. We're not machmir. We're good Jews. We're Jews that like to follow the halacha. We're not looking for leniencies. Yeah, fine. Halacha number 25, cafe. Yeah, matzah during the year. So now we're going to get into the juicy stuff. Yeah, so everyone put on your seatbelts because basically this is the one halacha that we're going to learn today. And it's going to be tons of footnotes. So let's see. Matzah during the year. The poskim debated which blessing do you make over matzah during the year other than on Pesach. The custom of Sephardic Jews is to say the bracha b'roim mizunot men shalosh. There's a solid basis in this halacha for this practice. Nevertheless, those who are God-fearing people should eat the matzah only after saying amotzi on regular bread. Another possibility is to eat 216 grams of matzah. In that case, right, he says it's considered to be bread and it requires netilat yadayim and bracha v'motzi and after eating birkat hamazon. Most Ashkenazi Jews treat matzah as ordinary bread all year long, and therefore they're going to say motzi and birkat hamazon when eating matzah. Okay, so let's see the footnote 235. Rishon LeZion explained this halacha in the Chazon Ovadia Berachot, as explained in the preface to these halachot. The third definition of pata b'kisin is Rav Hai Gaon. He defined it as bread that is baked to be dry and crunchy. Maran ruled that we follow all three definitions of pata b'kisin. According to this, the correct blessing for matzah should be ben shalosh. Indeed, this is the ruling, the response of Besamim Rosh and the Sefer Tzoror Amor, right? The Sherek Netzah Gdolah ruled that the correct blessing is Amotzi and Birkat Hamazon. Why? Since matzah is not so hard. So already we're trying to get into the Tunisian, right? So obviously you see that he was from, right, the Doto Mizrach countries, right? So it was a little bit more of a soft matzah. He testified that this was the practice of the Maram Sagiz. So he says over here, and that he follows it as well. It might be, however, that he was speaking about matzah that was really somewhat soft and chewy. The standard matzah marketed nowadays is totally dry, and it might be that those poskim would agree that it's when it's known. Meaning, the regular matzah, doesn't matter whether it's hand matzah or machine matzah, you're going to tell me that it's soft? I've never seen a soft matzah other than the Tunisian or the
Nigerian one.
Yeah.
So it's soft. It's mamash como pita.
So okay, so that's going to be like pita. Which one? The Shirek Netzah Gdolah? Shirek Netzah Gdolah, I think, was from Turkey or somewhere. I think either from Turkey or from Italy, from one of these places. Okay? So the question is our matzot, whether it's machine or a thing, if it's hard, it's a cracker. What is it? It's a cracker. That's all that it is. Nobody's going to start telling you, no, it's soft. Since when is it soft? You come, you bite, you hear the crunch. You understand? Fine. The responsa. Yeah, Bet David. He discussed this issue at length. He concluded that one should say amotzi and birkat hamazon. He explained that Rav Hai Gaon, right, was speaking, you could hardly say, was speaking of bread that is placed in the oven a second time to toast it, or bread that is left extra time in the oven so it'll become toasted. Matzah, on the other hand, is baked for a very short time. It's crispy only because the dough is rolled to very, very thin layers. Therefore, it has the status of regular bread despite its crunchiness. So here he comes and he said something interesting. He says, when we were talking about toast or crunchy, it was there for a reason. Here, the only reason why it's crunchy is just because it's so thin and you leave it such a short time. But if you, behemet, leave it a long time, so behemet, it's different. So furthermore, crackers, right, he says, are, one second. Rarely, sorry, I'm just going to have to put the book like this to read it properly. Crackers are rarely used as the basis of a meal. They are meant to be a snack food. Matzah is used as the basis of meals on Pesach, and therefore it's considered bread at that time. Because of this, the status continues to be bread even after Pesach. Okay?
According to Hai Gaon.
This is according to what? Yeah. No. Well, Rav Hai Gaon was one of the crunchy. This is the Bet David. Okay? The Bet David is the one that says this. Okay? So now, the Rav Chida took issue with the Bet David, and he agreed that matzah during Pesach for sure is regular bread. Why? That's only bread that you have. But he maintained that after Pesach, people look upon matzah as another cracker. And he testified that during the year, majority of people say Borei Mizunot and Men Shalosh. So, after pondering the question for some time, the Rav Chida decided the conclusion of Bet David is indeed plausible. Therefore, he recommended that anyone who's God-fearing should avoid eating matzah after Pesach unless he's going to eat an entire meal's volume, right? Which is, again, the volume of the meal, which is the 216 grams. And then he says, it seems from this, the principle that, right, that in principle, the common custom, which is to say, is correct. It is best, however, to eat an entire meal, to say, So he says, although the response of Oel Yitzchak and the Chukata Pesach concur with the ruling of the Bet David, many Achronim concur that a God-fearing person should eat matzah during a meal only, when he's already recited Amotzi on ordinary bread. Meaning, don't just use the Bet David and say, you know what, it's Amotzi. No, not that either, because it could be tzmizunot. So if we do it in the middle of a meal. So since the status of matzah is uncertain, it seems that the correct practice is to say borei min mizunot and shalosh. Why? Because this is the Sefer Michtavim. Ramichtam, what does he say? That when you have a product that you're not sure if it's going to be a motzi or mizunot, which beracha should you make? Or mizunot. Right? Why? Because once it's mizunot is going to be yitzchua for the amotzi, but it's more of an inclusive beracha, just like shakol, right? Or hadama. Hadama includes the buripriyaetz, right? Because once the etz comes from hadama as well. So the same thing. The mizunot, amotzi lechem, if it's not lechem, it's a problem. You understand? Meaning, if you say amotzi lechem inadetz and it's not lechem, so you have a problem. But if you say borei mizunot, it is mazon. It's food. It's something nurturing. It's something which satiates. So therefore, it's fine. So you have a doubt. Yeah, anything which is safek, you would say mizunot and not amotzi.
Did you see, Rabbi? They do in the matzah. They fry it and they put it with honey type of.
Okay, so one. Before getting to the, because that's gonna be taking a hamotzi and turning into a mizunot. One minute. That's another halacha. We're talking about
that.
Yes, but that was in regular bread. We're not in regular bread. First, we're in matzah. So first, let's
Pesach is regular bread.
Very good. So we're gonna have to speak about, because if it's regular bread and now you come and you fry it afterwards, if it's going to be more than a kazait, you have a problem.
You know what I'm talking about, no?
Yeah, but it depends how big. Depends how big you make the pieces. If it's a big pieces, it's the problem.
Make small quarter.
Okay, so if it's gonna be very, very small and you're going to fry it, so then again you would make it mizunot. If it's small pieces. Yeah?
Because of the quantity that
because it's less than a kazait. Okay? So the response of Neshoam, he commented that although it is common in the United States to say matzah after Pesach, the truth is that matzah should be regarded as regular bread throughout the year. And you have to say amotzi mikadamazon. Likewise, the Olat Yitzchak brings down Rosh Hashanah Zalman Auerbach, stating that the Sephardic rabbis who say that it's going to be mizunot are mistaken. So Rosh Hashanah Zalman said it's a mistake. Right, that Rishon LeZion expresses amazement at these criticisms. Since the Rav Chida testified that the common custom say mizunot, right, over matzah, and he did not object to this practice. He showed that the Ginat Vradim, Mara Sasson, Mara Florentine, the Ben Menucha, the Kudat Elazar, they also confirmed it's Murei mizunot. Rav Shalom Mesas also testified that the common custom is like the Rav Chida, right, and he verified that it's correct. So for even Shalom Mesas from Moroccans, same thing. Some authorities suggested a compromise. Until the 14th of Iyar, it's hamotzi. Afterwards, it becomes Borei mizunot. But the Rishon LeZion refuted this also. Yeah, many times, because basically until the 14th of Pesach Sheni. Some people actually used to make also difference, not only until Pesach Sheni, some people used to make the difference until Shavuot. Right? And there was a third opinion also. A difference, was it left over from Pesach or not? Meaning, if it was Pesach, and then it was just left over from Pesach, since during Pesach it was amotzi, it never lost the status quo. But today, for example, I go into a kosher store and I buy matzah. So there it will be mizunot. Because I'm not buying matzah for amotzi, I'm buying matzah as a cracker. No, that for sure. But I'm talking about even kasher Pesach. Even kasher Pesach, you will make mizunot, according to the shita. So then it would be amotzi according to that opinion. Again, there's different reasons. You understand? So again, you've got to. Now again, Rav Ovadia argued on all those. Rav Ovadia said, no, right after Pesach, Gamarnu, Sof Pasuk. You understand? There's nothing we're talking about. But there were certain opinions that said, no, until Pesach Sheni, or until Shavuot, or leftover or not leftover. Meaning, if it's going to be a new, so you bought it new, you didn't buy it for Pesach. So therefore, you bought it as a cracker. But if you have leftover Pesach, that was already amotzi. Once it's already amotzi. Well, again, according to one opinion, no. So, but anyway, you just saw that the God-fearing person should not do that, because you saw that even it started from the Rav Chida. That means this concept of a God-fearing person should have it in the middle of the meal, right? It's already brought down the Rav Chida of Ben Sina Bashol, and even here he's bringing it down. A lot of people here do mizunot, yes. Again, according to Rav Vadia, it will be okay, but according to the best way is to do it in the middle of a meal.
If you want to.
No, but you bought.
So you eat meal, you eat bread in order to make sure.
You bought the matzah for amotzi.
But until Pesach Sheni, some people still say it's amotzi. Understand? Let's see though. Let's see. The God-fearing person, the God-fearing person is going to eat a meal's volume of matzah and only after having a motzi. So it says that Rishon LeZion recommended following the stringency, since a number of Acharonim ruled that one must always say amotzi. As mentioned above, the Bet David argued that matzah is not the same as other crackers for two reasons. The Or LeZion testified that the custom of the Jews is the same as mizunot, right? Since it's crunchy, and he added that this was the opinion of his Rosh Yeshiva of Ezra Atiyah. Nevertheless, he concluded it's best always to do netilat yadayim and amotzi before eating a matzah. And he says, but without reciting the blessing when the tilat yadayim, better yet, one should just eat an entire meal, right, of it. Alternatively, he just says, breaking the matzah in pieces smaller than a kazait, and to soak them in wine or some red juice. And then it's burei mizunot for sure. Yeah, you're soaking it. What is meant an entire meal's volume? So he says, on first thought, it should be the volume of the 4 eggs, 216 grams. On second thought, maybe it's 3 grams. 3 eggs is already going to be enough. So it's going to be 162. This is because many poskim ruled that the blessing for pizza is definitely a motzi, and this is like the opinion of Maran as well. Likewise, since many poskim ruled that the correct blessing of matzah all year round is a motzi, and the Rishon and agreed the opinion seems more plausible, seems that it's sufficient to eat the volume of 3 grams, 3 eggs, 3 kabetzim basically, 162 grams, and to say the beracha v'motzi bekat hamazon. Okay, what was the person's? Yeah. 162 grams.
54 times.
No, 54 times 3. But one second. Which matzah are you talking about?
What?
The matzah shmura. Sometimes even less than half. It depends on the thing.
Depends who makes it.
No, 2. A full matzah many times could be even 80 grams. A full matzah. 80 or 90. Depends. Again, depends which matzah. Some matzot, they're big matzot. It's 80 grams.
1 pound, 450 for 5 matzot. What do you mean 5? There's no 5, there at least 8.
Depends on the thing. I get the extra thin, so
Yeah,
you're probably correct. The extra thin, you're probably gonna get. You're gonna get much more. You're gonna have to probably have like almost 3 or I don't know what. You understand? Or I don't know. You know, like
If they're maintaining tie.
yeah, but then you don't know. Yeah. What was the personal practice of the Rishon LeZion? It's common knowledge that the Rishon LeZion always said amotzi over matzah, regardless how much he plans to eat. Wow. Did you just hear that? Yeah. He says, indeed, the Sefer Mayan Omer testified that Maran Rishon LeZion admitted that this is his practice. He feels that the logic of Bet David is sound, and that one can question the validity of the common custom cited by the Rav Chida. Even so, it seems the Maran Rishon LeZion contradicts his own ruling by doing this. Perhaps it's because he eats matzah very often instead of bread. And therefore, for him, the matzah is like bread all year round. In fact, he ruled that if someone always eats matzah instead of regular bread, right, because of health reasons, he should say amotzi.
So that's according that's the
That was the common practice of Rav Ovadia. Meaning Rav Ovadia Yosef himself always said amotzi on matzah. So which is incredible. Yeah? What about Ashkenazi Jews? So obviously Ashkenazi Jews, the response that Tzitz has a strengthened basis.
A big piece more than a doesn't have milk.
No, I could make a bread which is the Chatan and Kala breads, you know, the big huge thing. I could make it small. It's the same thing. No, you have the regular matzah, which is like crackers.
The fact that they bake matzah as a big piece, as bread.
Yeah, no, but the size doesn't matter. No matter.
Doesn't matter?
Yeah, doesn't matter.
It's not like the frying.
No, it's not. It doesn't matter. You have certain crackers that are bigger than a kazait. You know, like the long crackers, the long ones. You could have one cracker, which sometimes is bigger than a kazait.
It's not. It's never more.
It's not more than a kazait?
No.
Okay.
The long ones that
Yeah, you would have to check.
they're very thin.
Yeah, okay. Fine. Next. So he says that Tzitz Eliezer strengthened the base of the Ashkenazi Jews to always say Motzi and Mikad Mazon, right? And therefore the response of Shevet recommended that Ashkenazi should always say Motzi on regular matzah, on regular bread, then eat matzah during the meal. Okay, what about soft and thick matzah? So this entire discussion is about thin, dry matzah that is crunched to the cracker. Soft matzah definitely is a motzi all year long, and this might be the beginning of the Knesset Gdula. Yeah, it's always going to be a motzi. Okay, and therefore there's nothing more to talk about. And we continue with Zat Hashem tomorrow.